Hey, this is Annie, and today we're going to be talking about feels. Specifically, we're going to be talking about sad feels, mad feels, frustrated feels, anxious feels, and any feelings that make you feel not the best. But what we'll do today is we'll talk about how to use those feelings and how to channel those feelings so that you can feel a little bit better. And this video idea actually came together because I think I'm kind of in this rut where not feeling the best, slash I usually just say I'm feeling a little bit off, and yeah, because the way I like to think about it is that emotions are kind of like fire. If you don't know how to control it, then you can get burned or you can burn others, and that's not good. But it's not the fire that's good or bad, but rather it's the way in which you're using it and what you're using it for. And so if you can channel that fire into something like cooking a meal together and sharing it, then that becomes something good. And so in the same way you can channel that fire, let's do something similar and let's channel it into a beneficial tool. And so let's get lucid with these 3 tips on how to do so. So tip number 1, feel your feels. Because feelings are crucial. They give you information about yourself, and bad feelings are just as important as good feelings. Where there is day, there is night, or as Alan Watts says, life implies death, or death implies life. And I can go on and on about how where there is one, there is another, but the general feeling of this is that when you're not feeling the best, slash when you're feeling off, what you want to do naturally and normally is you want to run, hide, numb, suppress, judge. And if you do any of those or all of those, what will happen is these feelings will just come up and will surface back. So tip number 1 is about diving in. The only way out is through. But keep in mind too that you have to keep swimming, or else you might sink. On the other hand, if you don't go through it at all, well, then you're just playing with fire. Besides, it's good to feel your feels because, as Brene Brown says, when you numb your pain, you also numb your joy. Because the truth is, you can't selectively numb feelings. So lean in and remember that it's all just temporary. Life is filled with highs and lows, and that's okay. Tip number 2. Okay, so you're aware of your feels, and let's be honest, it sucks. It doesn't feel good, but here's where you can channel your feelings through the internal locus of control, which in turn just means that you make things happen. You are in control. You are in control of what you do and where you put your time and energy. So a little weird trick and tip that I learned from a podcast, and I think it was through Superwoman, but I could be wrong. Essentially, what this tip was that whenever she wasn't feeling like she was in control, what she would do is she told herself, slash she told her brain, that she needed to put her finger on her nose, right? And if you want, you can try this too. So tell your brain right now to put your finger on your nose. And if you can do it, that means, yes, I am indeed in control. And since you are in control, now's the time to put that energy into your creative work or something that you actually want to do. Maybe put it into, something that might make you be a better you. Because according to 99U, your most productive days begins when you're feeling negative. You can use that feel to focus. Additionally, I heard this from a talk, and it was about Michael Jordan and how he used to focus on his haters and whatever critique they gave him, slash he didn't even need to hear the praises and whatnot. What he did was essentially he was using all those negative feelings that he had. He was channeling it into his game in order to become better. And in a similar way, I've been known by friends to use my sad feels in order to create work, which may or may not be true, and it's probably true because here are some story time / some examples. Number 1, when I got laid off from New York, the letters incident, and another loss that I won't really get into, but I kind of covered this in another video / the number 1 tip for interviews. But essentially, with all of those 3 things combined, I just felt that I was at a low point, and so I channeled that feeling into creating a new story for myself, and in doing so I dove into who I was / who I am. Number 2, I IGDM'd my then crush, who I knew had no interest in me whatsoever, but I did it anyways. And yeah, even though I knew what the outcome was going to be, I still felt sad, and so I used that energy into doing something that I had always wanted to do, which in that time was I wanted to build a face filter. And so one of my earliest face filters was the Sad Feels face filter. Number 3. So this was when I was kind of seeing someone / talking to someone, and I knew we weren't the right match. I think I was still hopeful, and obviously it didn't work out, but I was still bummed out regardless. And so I used that feeling that I had and I channeled it into this. And what I ended up getting out of that was I ended up getting a Berlin trip because I was a finalist. More on this in another video. Number 4, this one is actually too fresh / still hasn't quite been processed yet, but essentially not gonna share any of that because still processing. But what ended up happening out of that was that now I'm creating these videos and I'm doing AR work / illustrations. All of this is to say that when you think about your greatest success, a lot of it comes from failures. So remember, you're in control because where your energy flows, your focus goes. Tip number 3, Mel Robbins' 5-second rule plus the snowball effect. Alright, so what if that doesn't work? / what if all I want to do is do nothing and mope around and just lay on the floor? While it's important to rest, sometimes the only way to feel like doing something is to actually do it. Because in the motivation myth, something that's covered in that book is the fact that real motivation, according to Jeff Hayden, comes from after you start. So in order to start, let's implement Mel Robbins' 5-second rule. So Mel Robbins' 5-second rule is essentially 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then go do the thing that you need to do. And so usually there's a little rocket ship emoji because where that stems from is she was watching the TV and there was a NASA space launch, right? And so in the similar way that NASA just launches the shuttle after the countdown, she launched herself off of the bed and she did what she needed to do. A funny story, so once my friend tried implementing this after I told him about the 5-second rule, and while he was doing the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 countdown, what ended up happening was that the person he wanted to ask the question to actually proceeded to say, well, the question time has now closed. And so if you find yourself in a situation where the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 second rule is a little bit too long, or you're dragging it out a little bit too long, what you can do is shorten the 5-second into 3-second. And you can couple that with the snowball effect, which in essence is once you get something started, you keep on going. And so those are the 3 tips on how to navigate this. So a quick summary to all of these tips is tip number 1, feel your feels. Tip number 2 is channel your feelings through an internal locus of control. Tip number 3 is the Mel Robbins 5-second rule plus the snowball effect. Hopefully this was helpful, and if it is, please do share, comment, subscribe, and of course do so because this actually helps the algorithm, because when you're doing this, it actually helps other people find this video so it can help them as well. Thank you for watching, and on a final note, when we try to hide, suppress, / cover it up, what ends up happening is that these feelings become even darker. But shine some light on it, and darkness cannot exist where there's light. So keep on shining and strive for lucidity, and I'll see you around for the next videos, whenever that is, and until then, take care.